ever think about what it would be like to see an empire just fall apart
Yeah.
right in front of you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a wild thought. Like your whole world changes, poof, just like that.
Yeah.
And, well, that's kind of what happened in 5th century Italy.
Right.
It was a time of total upheaval, ambition, betrayal, shifting allegiances. And at the center of it all, you've got these two kings, Odoacer and Theodoric.
Two really fascinating figures.
Totally. And their destinies were like totally intertwined, and they end up shaping the fate of the Western Roman Empire.
So we're diving deep into their stories today, and we'll be using the Noble Blood podcast as our guide.
Oh, noble blood.
Yeah,
Yeah, they tell a really captivating story about these two.
for sure. Get ready for prophecies, battlefield clashes, a whole lot of political maneuvering, and in the end, a pretty dramatic climax that'll make you think about the true cost of power.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
Totally. So let's start with Odoacer. His story is like something right out of a movie.
It really is.
Okay, so picture this. His father was a Hunnic lieutenant.
And he gets killed in a battle against, wait for it, Theodoric's father.
Oh, wow. What a twist.
Right, talk about foreshadowing.
Yeah, their lives were connected right from the beginning. And that cross-cultural upbringing that Odoacer had, I think it gave him a really unique perspective. Like he understood both the Roman world and the world of the, well, the quote-unquote barbarians.
Right.
So he was able to navigate that complex political scene of the time,
Yeah, totally. And he navigated it all the way to the top.
Yeah.
In 476, he leads this rebellion that actually brings down the Western Roman Empire.
It's incredible when you think about it. This barbarian warrior deposes the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus. Wild.
I know, right? It's like, talk about audacity.
Yeah.
But, I think it's important to remember that Odoacer, he wasn't really setting out to destroy the empire.
Right.
Yeah.
He was more focused on solidifying his own power within that existing structure.
Yeah.
He ends up becoming the king of Italy. Technically, he's a vassal to the Eastern Roman Emperor, but let's be real.
Yeah,
He basically operated as an independent ruler.
totally. It's almost like he saw an opportunity and was like, okay, I'm going to use this to my advantage. He didn't dismantle everything. He just kind of like adapted and took control.
Exactly. He was smart about it.
Yeah. And then there's this whole fascinating prophecy thing.
Oh, yeah. The prophecy of Saint Severinus.
Right. Okay, so legend has it, Saint Severinus, who was this holy man, predicts that Odoacer is going to rule for 14 years.
Okay.
And get this, he loses his throne after exactly 14 years.
Wow. That gives me chills.
Right. Adds this whole other layer to the story. I mean, do you think he knew his time was limited? Was he always looking over his shoulder, just waiting for the prophecy to come true?
It's impossible to say for sure, but you can imagine the pressure he must have felt knowing this prophecy was hanging over him.
Totally. Imagine leading this multi-ethnic army, trying to hold on to power in a time of just absolute chaos. It must have been incredibly stressful.
It had to be.
And all the while, this other ambitious figure is waiting in the wings, Theodoric.
Yes, Theodoric. Now, his story, it's a real contrast to Odoacer's.
Yeah.
Odoacer grows up on the fringes of Roman society. Theodoric. He spends his youth as a hostage in the heart of the Eastern Roman Empire in Constantinople.
It's true.
Yeah.
A Gothic prince sent to the most powerful court in the world. Imagine that, like the culture shock, all the intrigue, the things he must have learned there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he got a formal Roman education, learned Latin and Greek, observed Roman politics and customs firsthand. It's like boot camp for a future ruler,
Yeah, totally. And that experience, it would prove so valuable later on when he set his sights on Italy. But, even with this Roman education, he never lost that warrior spirit.
Oh, absolutely not.
He goes back to his people, the Goths,
Mhm.
leads them through all these hardships and conflicts, proves himself a capable and, let's be honest, ambitious leader.
Very ambitious. And the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno, he recognizes this ambition.
Yeah.
He saw Theodoric as a valuable tool, someone who could help him get what he wanted.
So Zeno's thinking, okay, I need someone to deal with this Odoacer guy in Italy. Theodoric, you're the man for the job.
Pretty much. And the reward. The title of Patricius and control of Italy.
Not a bad deal.
Right. Zeno was playing a clever game, manipulating both Theodoric and Odoacer to get what he wanted.
Yeah, he was a master strategist.
Absolutely. And this, of course, set the stage for an epic clash between these two powerful kings, both with their own claim to Italy.
And that's where things get really interesting.
And it wasn't like some quick little skirmish either.
Right.
This war between Theodoric and Odoacer,
Yeah.
it dragged on for years.
Oh, wow.
Just devastating the Italian peninsula.
Yeah, you think about the scale of the destruction.
Oh, totally.
All those people caught in the middle. It's hard to even imagine.
Absolutely.
And it's more than just these two kings,
Right.
fighting over a throne.
Yeah.
It's about the everyday lives that were disrupted, the livelihoods lost.
For sure. I mean, we have to remember,
Yeah.
these battles weren't just about brute force. Especially with Theodoric.
Yeah.
He was a brilliant military strategist.
He really was?
He knew how to use his resources,
Yeah.
outmaneuver his opponents, even turn what looked like defeat into a strategic advantage.
It's like he was always thinking a few steps ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a chess master planning his move.
Exactly. Like, there was this one time,
Mm-hmm.
Theodoric and his forces got completely surrounded by Odoacer's army.
Oh, wow.
You'd think he'd panic, right?
Yeah, totally.
But he doesn't. He uses it to his advantage.
What do you do?
He pretends to retreat,
Oh.
lures Odoacer's forces into a vulnerable spot, and then bam,
No way.
he strikes.
Wow.
It was this brilliant move that turned the whole tide of the war.
That's incredible. It really shows how strategic thinking and adaptability can be just as important as having a big army.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it was that cunning that led to Odoacer's downfall.
So after this long, brutal siege,
Yeah.
Odoacer surrenders.
Yep.
So I'm guessing Theodoric, after all that fighting, he just takes over, right?
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Theodoric actually agrees to share power with Odoacer at first.
Really?
Yeah,
That's surprising.
it is right.
Yeah.
Especially after such a bitter conflict.
Yeah, it seems awfully generous.
Right.
So was he actually willing to share power? Or
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Remember, Theodoric spent his youth in the Roman Empire.
Right, in Constantinople.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He saw firsthand how ruthless power politics can be.
Yeah.
And he knew a divided kingdom is a weak kingdom.
So he's playing the long game here,
Exactly.
making promises he didn't intend to keep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So shortly after agreeing to this power-sharing deal,
Yeah.
Theodoric throws this big banquet,
Right.
invites Odoacer and all his supporters.
Okay.
It's supposed to be this celebration of unity, right?
Right.
But during the feast,
Uh-huh.
Theodoric has Odoacer assassinated.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Talk about a betrayal.
Yeah, it's like something out of Shakespeare.
Totally. It was a cunning plan disguised as a gesture of goodwill.
Yeah. It's crazy how he pulled that off.
It is. And with Odoacer and any potential rivals out of the way,
Right.
Theodoric takes full control of Italy.
And that begins his 33-year reign.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he got what he wanted, but at a terrible cost. It
Definitely.
makes you think about that old saying, power corrupts.
It's true. It really does. And I think that's something historians still debate today.
What's that?
Whether the end justifies the means. Was what Theodoric did necessary to bring peace and stability to Italy, or was it just a cold-blooded power grab?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is. It's fascinating how these figures from so long ago can still spark debate and discussion, you know?
They do. It's like their stories still have something to teach us.
They really do.
Yeah.
And, while Theodoric's rise to power was definitely marked by violence and betrayal,
For sure.
his reign is actually considered a period of relative peace and prosperity for Italy.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people see him as this enlightened ruler.
That seems kind of counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
I mean, the assassination and all.
Right, but Theodoric understood that to hold on to power, he couldn't just rule through fear and intimidation.
Right.
He had to win over the Roman population.
Okay.
So he adopted a lot of Roman customs.
Really?
Yeah, kept the Roman administrative system in place.
Mm-hmm.
He even appointed Romans to high-level positions in his government.
Wow. So he's not trying to erase Roman culture.
No, not at all.
He's trying to integrate his Gothic followers into it.
Exactly. He's creating a kind of synthesis, a blend of Gothic and Roman traditions and institutions.
That's really smart. It's not just about brute force. It's about cultural sensitivity, strategic integration.
Exactly.
Wow.
And to a large extent, it worked. His reign saw a period of stability, economic growth.
So things were good under Theodoric.
They were, relatively speaking, of course.
Right.
Trade flourished, arts were supported, infrastructure was improved. It was a time of peace and prosperity, especially compared to the chaos that came before.
So it sounds like Theodoric, despite that brutal rise to power, actually did a pretty decent job as king.
He did. He brought stability, prosperity, even a degree of cultural unity to Italy.
But there had to be challenges, right?
No, of course.
Ruling a kingdom is never easy.
Absolutely. And as his reign went on, Theodoric faced more and more obstacles.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, he had to balance the needs of his Gothic followers with the expectations of the Roman population.
Right, keeping everyone happy.
Exactly. And then there were religious tensions.
Uh-oh.
The Goths practiced Arian Christianity, which
Yeah.
was different from the Catholicism of the Romans.
Right.
Plus, he had to deal with all the usual political maneuvering.
Yeah, threats from inside and outside the kingdom.
It was a constant juggling act.
Trying to keep all these different balls in the air.
Exactly. And as he got older,
Uh-huh.
Theodoric became more and more suspicious of those around him.
Really?
Yeah, especially the Roman aristocracy.
Right.
He started seeing conspiracies everywhere.
So even when power's used for good, it can still have a corrupting influence.
That's a great point. It's a timeless theme, really. The
Yeah.
weight of leadership, the constant pressure to stay in control, it takes its toll.
Yeah.
And for Theodoric, this paranoia led to some pretty harsh actions.
Like what?
He ordered executions, purges, even some of his closest advisors, people who'd been loyal to him for years, ended up victims of his suspicion.
That's so sad.
It is. It's a reminder that history is rarely black and white.
Right.
Even the most successful leaders are complex, with both good and bad qualities.
It's true.
And their stories can teach us a lot about power, leadership, the importance of understanding different perspectives.
Absolutely. It's fascinating how these ancient figures can still speak to us today, make us think critically about the past, and apply those lessons to our own lives.
Totally. And there's another aspect of Theodoric's story that I find really intriguing.
What's that?
The way his historical figure kind of morphed into this legend, you know?
Oh, yeah.
He became this mythical hero, Dietrich von Bern.
Right. I've heard about that.
Mhm.
It's amazing how history can become folklore.
It is. It shows the power of storytelling, this human need to create heroes and legends.
Yeah. So how did Theodoric, this ambitious king who fought his way to the top, become Dietrich von Bern, this mythical hero?
Well, over the centuries, Theodoric's story got embellished, transformed, you know?
Right.
He became a symbol of strength, courage, chivalry, and Germanic folklore.
Okay.
They said he battled giants and dragons, had superhuman strength, even breathed fire.
Wow, that sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But these legends weren't just campfire stories. They
Right.
were woven into epic poems, depicted in artwork, celebrated in festivals. Dietrich von Bern became a central figure in Germanic folklore, a symbol of their heritage.
It's incredible how Theodoric's story had such a lasting impact.
It really is.
It became part of their cultural identity.
Totally. It speaks to that enduring power of myth and legend, how we use stories to understand the world, celebrate our heroes, and explore our fears and aspirations.
And it adds another layer to Theodoric's legacy.
It does.
Makes us wonder how we want to be remembered.
Yeah.
What impact we want to have. Is it about grabbing power no matter what, or using it to make things better?
Those are big questions.
They are, and I think that's what makes these deep dives so valuable.
I agree.
They push us to look deeper, think about the complexities of the past,
For sure.
and find lessons we can apply to our own lives.
Exactly. And they remind us that history isn't just dry facts and dates.
Right.
It's a reflection of our own humanity, our struggles, our hopes.
Yeah, I love that. It really is amazing how these stories, from like way back when, can still, make us think today.
Yeah.
So what can we actually learn from these two, from Odoacer and Theodoric? All their ambition, all their struggles. What insights can we actually take away?
Well, I think one of the big takeaways is that, history, it's not just a bunch of names and dates. It's not just some dusty textbook,
Yeah.
It's about people making choices. Odoacer, Theodoric, they were real people with real struggles, and their decisions had huge ripple effects, not just for them, but for, the whole course of history.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote, "The only thing new in the world is the history you don't know."
Yeah.
Like their power struggles, the whole leadership thing, the dilemmas, it's all still relevant today.
Totally. And by, digging into the past, we get a better grasp of our own present,
Yeah.
We can learn from their mistakes, their successes, and hopefully approach things a little wiser with a little more perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else that really hit me was this whole idea of legacy. Both of them, they wanted to leave their mark on the world. But their legacies are, well, kind of complicated, a mix of good and bad.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Odoacer, he's remembered for toppling the Western Roman Empire. That's huge, but his time was short.
Yeah.
Theodoric, he ruled for a long time, brought stability, prosperity, but he also used violence to get what he wanted.
So it makes you think about how you want to be remembered. Like, what impact do you want to have? Is it all about getting to the top no matter what? Or is it about using that power to actually do some good, leave things a little better than you found them?
I mean, those are questions everyone wrestles with, not just leaders. Like, what will people say about us when we're gone? What's our story going to be?
Yeah, it's pretty humbling when you think about it. And I think that's why these deep dives are so important.
Yeah.
They force us to go beyond just the surface level stuff.
Right.
Make us think about the past, all its complexities, and maybe even learn a thing or two for ourselves.
Exactly. And they remind us that history, it's not boring. It's a mirror reflecting our own humanity back at us.
Yeah, totally. So as we wrap up our look at Odoacer and Theodoric, I want to leave you with this. As you go through your day, think about the choices you make, big or small. And remember, you're part of this big ongoing story, this history in the making.
Right. Your actions, your words, your decisions, they all matter. What kind of story are you writing? What will your legacy be?
It's something to really think about. And if you're like me, fascinated by history, by these stories of ambition and betrayal, I definitely recommend listening to the full Noble Blood episode. They do a fantastic job.
They really do. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We're always uncovering fascinating stories and insights, and we love to share them with you. So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.